Hey, I'm Adam Kelly. In this video, I wanted to talk about how I think AI is going to change game development. So I have my wife set up this lovely scene to put us in the academic thinking mindset. So first of all, I think that it's pretty clear from some of the experiments I've done that AI is going to allow very interesting gameplay with other characters in your environment. So with a lot of the Unity ML Agents projects I've done, I've been using reinforcement learning to train characters or players or animals in a lot of the cases for me to do behavior that would have been difficult to program manually, meaning programming rules that make them have specific behavior. By training them with reinforcement learning, you can kind of just give them rewards and they'll learn how to interact with their environment. Also, I think that opponents will be able to predict the moves of players. So, as you're playing a game, maybe a first person shooter or something, having more intelligent opponents that don't make common mistakes that you have in other games, then it'll be a lot more interesting to play against those, much like playing against a real human. Next, I think we'll get really interesting developments in how we interact with characters in games in the future, in the near, probably next few years. I've seen some really interesting demos from Google about how they can do not only speech understanding, but speech generation and synthesis, meaning you're probably going to be able to have a real conversation with a character in your game in the next few years. I think that's really cool to think about. Also, many of the voices that they use sound eerily like real humans. So, if they can do that for calling, then there's no reason why we couldn't have a whole host of really interesting voices inside of a game without having to record tons of voices from the real world. Finally, I think that game asset production is going to get a lot easier because of enhancements made by artificial intelligence. One thing that you just have to check out if you haven't seen it already is what GANs can do. You probably have seen GANs before because it got pretty popular recently with some synthetically generated faces. Basically, they fed in lots of examples of human faces and it was able to come up with its own versions of human faces that you can kind of tell if you pay really close attention, but otherwise they look just like real humans. So to think that we might be able to use technology like that to generate characters or generate levels. Another example was I saw that there was a team that was able to take 3D models of scenes, a street scene, and then use GANs to generate a more realistic looking version of that. Basically, it's texturing these objects with just artificial intelligence coming up with what it should look like. I think that has a lot of potential. I think that's a little ways out still. It rarely looks seamless and natural, but there's a lot of potential to take individual materials, maybe the bark of a tree or dirt or something like that, that typically looks very patterned. If you zoom all the way out, it doesn't look very good. You can tell it's a pattern. But if we can generate more natural looking textures that way, I think that will really help with game development. Also, I've seen some really interesting applications of using AI to understand character movement. So that can really help with game asset creation for independent developers and AAA developers, making more natural movement without having to set up an entire motion capture studio. There's this really cool example of quadruped movement, and basically the wolf in this scene is able to move around very naturally using movements that were decided by artificial intelligence. That's a really cool project, so make sure to check out that. I'll make sure to link to it in the description. So those are some of the ways. I'm sure there will be more ways that AI will or may impact game development in the future. I don't think that AI will be making games on its own, or that you'll be able to just drag and drop an AI into your scene and it will automatically just be what you want it to be. But I think as an assistant to the game development process, it shows a lot of promise. Thanks for watching. I'd appreciate to hear what your thoughts are on this as well.